Some people don't control you with force. They control you with confusion. You walk into a conversation confident, and somehow you walk out second-guessing yourself. You replay what you said. You wonder if your tone was wrong. So you explain it again. And then again. That's how manipulation works. It doesn't attack your strength. It exploits your need to be understood. The problem isn't that you lack intelligence. It's that you keep trying to say it better instead of simply saying it once and stopping. Stoicism offers a different approach. It teaches that your power lives in your judgments, your choices, and your actions, not in other people's approval. When you understand that deeply, something shifts. You say what is true. You stop. And almost immediately, you become much harder to manipulate. 1. Clear boundaries. The first boundary that makes you impossible to manipulate is simple. Stop over-explaining your decisions. Most people lose control of conversations not because they are wrong, but because they keep talking. You state a boundary, and when the other person pushes back, you add reasons, then more reasons, then emotional reassurance. What started as clarity becomes persuasion. A boundary is not a debate invitation. It is a decision. When you say, "That doesn't work for me," it is complete. When you say, "I'm not available," it does not require a paragraph of context. The moment you begin stacking explanations, you give the other person material to challenge. They can question your logic, reinterpret your words, or attack your tone. Suddenly, the focus shifts from your decision to your delivery. Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." That line hits hard when applied to boundaries. Some people will think you are unreasonable simply because you refuse to over-explain. Let them think it. Your job is to act in alignment with your reason, not to manage their interpretation. Manipulation often hides in repeated questioning. Why? What do you mean? That doesn't make sense. If you keep elaborating, you are training them to expect endless justification. Instead, calmly repeat your boundary without expanding it. "I've already explained my decision." Then stop. Silence will feel uncomfortable at first. Most people rush to fill it. But that silence is powerful. It signals finality. Over time, people learn that your words are firm. And when your words are firm, attempts to steer you lose their effectiveness. Clarity without performance is the foundation of being impossible to manipulate. 2. Real accountability. The second boundary is this. Do not accept words without change. Apologies are easy. Transformation is not. Someone can say, "I'm sorry," in seconds. They can sound sincere. They can even appear emotional. But if their behavior repeats, the apology was a reset, not a repair. Manipulative dynamics often rely on cycles. There is tension, then an apology, then temporary calm, then the same behavior returns. If you respond to every apology with immediate forgiveness and full access, the pattern continues. Not because you are weak, but because there is no consequence attached to repetition. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." Accountability is not proven through speech. It is proven through consistent action. A real apology changes future behavior. It creates new patterns. It reduces the need for future apologies. This boundary does not require anger. It requires observation. When someone apologizes, you acknowledge it. But you also watch what happens next. If the same disrespect, inconsistency, or boundary violation returns, you adjust your level of trust. You reduce access. You protect your time. Healthy individuals may feel uncomfortable when you say, I appreciate the apology. What matters to me now is change. But they will respect it. Those who rely on repetition will attempt to make you feel unforgiving. They may accuse you of holding grudges. That reaction reveals their priorities. When you measure people by patterns instead of promises, manipulation weakens. Words alone no longer control the reset button. Consistency becomes the standard. And when consistency becomes the standard, only people willing to grow remain close. 3. Calm delay. The third boundary is the discipline of delay. Manipulation thrives on urgency. Someone pressures you for an immediate answer. They accuse you and demand a response. They create emotional intensity and expect instant engagement. The goal is simple: keep you reactive. Stoicism teaches that between stimulus and response lies your freedom. Most people surrender that space under pressure. They defend themselves immediately. They over-explain. They attempt to fix the tension in real time. But emotional urgency is often a tactic. Socrates observed, "The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing." That humility includes recognizing that your first emotional reaction may not be your wisest one. Pausing gives you room to think. It separates your ego from your judgment. Simple phrases restore control. "I'll think about it." "I'm not ready to answer right now." "I'll get back to you." These statements are not avoidance. They are composure. They prevent rushed decisions made from guilt, fear, or anger. If a situation truly requires resolution, it can survive a pause. When someone resists your need for time, that resistance often reveals their desire for control. Calm delay disrupts that dynamic. It shifts the pace of the interaction back to you. Over time, people realize they cannot provoke you into immediate compliance. They learn that intensity does not equal influence. And as your responses become more deliberate, your presence becomes more stable. Stability is difficult to manipulate. 4. Balanced effort. The fourth boundary is matching effort. Many people respond to distance by increasing investment. If someone pulls back, they lean in harder. If communication becomes inconsistent, they compensate with more availability. This feels generous, but it often stems from fear of losing connection. When effort is one-sided, imbalance forms, and imbalance creates vulnerability. If you consistently give more than you receive, you train the other person to expect it. They learn that minimal investment still earns maximum return. Balanced effort means aligning your energy with reality. If someone reduces communication, you do not chase. If plans become vague, you stop rearranging your life. If commitment weakens, you adjust accordingly. This is not retaliation, it is calibration. Stoicism emphasizes living in agreement with nature, which includes the nature of relationships. If the dynamic shows low investment, pretending it is high does not make it so. Matching effort forces clarity. Either the other person steps forward or the connection reveals its true depth. This boundary protects dignity. It prevents desperation from creeping into your behavior. When your contribution reflects what is actually present, you remove the leverage that manipulation depends on. You are no longer trying to secure affection through overextension. Balanced effort communicates quiet confidence. It says, "I value reciprocity," and reciprocity is incompatible with control. 5. Detached approval. The fifth boundary is detachment from approval. Many manipulative dynamics survive because one person fears being disliked. Approval becomes currency. To keep it, you soften boundaries. You tolerate disrespect. You reshape yourself to avoid conflict. Stoicism rejects the idea that your worth is determined by external validation. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. There is no clause about popularity. Integrity stands on its own. When someone calls you too sensitive or too rigid for maintaining a boundary, the instinct is to defend yourself. But defending often turns into over-explaining. Instead, evaluate calmly. Was your boundary reasonable? Was it expressed respectfully? If so, their discomfort does not make it wrong. Detachment from approval does not mean indifference to relationships. It means you refuse to trade principles for acceptance. Some people preferred you when you were more flexible and easier to influence. That preference is not a command. When you stop chasing approval, your energy stabilizes. You no longer enter conversations trying to secure a positive reaction. You enter them aligned with your values. Some people will respect that. Others will drift away. Both outcomes create clarity. Approval fluctuates. Integrity endures. And when integrity becomes your anchor, manipulation loses one of its strongest entry points. 6. Willingness to leave. The final boundary is the willingness to leave. This is what ultimately makes you impossible to manipulate. If someone believes you will never walk away, they hold leverage. They can test limits. They can repeat behavior. They can rely on your hope. Leaving does not require drama. It requires decision. When patterns consistently undermine your peace, staying becomes participation. Stoicism teaches that you control your choices. Remaining in a damaging dynamic is a choice. The willingness to leave changes everything. It removes desperation. It removes fear-based compliance. It communicates that access to you is conditional on respect. You can say, calmly, "This no longer works for me." No argument, no long speech, just clarity. That sentence ends cycles that endless explanations never could. Some connections will improve when they realize you are serious. Others will end. In both cases, you regain alignment. You prove to yourself that self-respect outweighs temporary comfort. When you internalize that leaving is an option, your boundaries gain weight. You no longer threaten departure. You embody it as a possibility. And people sense that. At that point, manipulation becomes ineffective. Not because you are aggressive, but because you are grounded. Conclusion: you don't become impossible to manipulate by raising your voice. You become impossible to manipulate by lowering your need to be approved. When your words are measured, when your standards are consistent, and when your presence is no longer negotiable, the entire dynamic shifts. People stop testing what they cannot move. They stop pushing where there is no opening, not because you are aggressive, but because you are internally settled. Stoicism is not about emotional withdrawal. It is about disciplined alignment. You say what is true. You observe what is repeated. You respond on your timeline. You invest where there is reciprocity. And when necessary, you withdraw without drama. That is strength. If this perspective sharpened something in you, subscribe to Stoic Horology for more practical Stoic frameworks you can apply immediately. If you found value here, share this with someone who needs firmer boundaries in their life. And in the comments, write "no access" if you're done negotiating your standards. Thank you for being here. The more intentional you become, the less available you are for manipulation.